Hey, welcome back. In this video, you'll learn how to install a Python interpreter and an IDE. A Python interpreter is a software which is designed to interpret Python code. So Python itself is just a language, right? And you need a program to understand that language and produce output. That program is known as the Python interpreter. And there's also the IDE. An IDE is like a text editor where you write that Python code. Now, an IDE is a bit more than a text editor because it has features which assist the coding process. The IDE we will use is PyCharm, and I do highly recommend you that you also use PyCharm. Even though it's possible to use another IDE of your choice, I do encourage you to use PyCharm because it's the best IDE for Python. It's designed around Python. Right, so let's start by downloading and installing a Python interpreter. These instructions will cover Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems. So no matter what operating system you're using, please go to python.org. So you can search for Python on Google and that should show up this page, python.org. Once the page loads, you should go to downloads, but then you might be tempted to download the current version, but please don't. As a rule of thumb, you should download a version which is 0.1 earlier than this version. That is because the current version usually will have many problems. And so the previous version will be more stable, especially when it comes to learning Python, or if you are using Python in production, you will run into problems that might frustrate you. So if this is Python 3.11, in your case, you should download Python 3.10. If here you have Python 3.12, you should download Python 3.11 and so on. I'll show you how to download a previous version. So let's download a previous version. For that, you should go to this button, view the full list of downloads. And then scroll down here and further down until you see this section looking for a specific release. And so again, the first version will be the current version, so you want to find the version below that, which is in my case Python 3.10. The last number doesn't matter. So if the current version is 3.12, you should find down here 3.11 and so on. So I'll download 3.10.8. To do that, you should go to this button, press that button, and that will take you to another page which you should scroll down until this section here, files. Now here you have files for different operating systems. So if you are on Windows operating system 64-bit, please download Windows Installer 64-bit. If you're on Windows 32-bit, please download Windows Installer 32-bit. And if you're on Mac, you should download this file, Mac OS. And if you are on Linux, you should download the gzipped source tarball. So once you have downloaded a Python interpreter, let's go to a new browser tab and search for PyCharm. And then go to the first page results, which should be from jetbrains.com. And then go to the download button. And here you have several tabs. You have a tab for Windows, Mac OS or Linux. So if you are on Windows, you should go to the Windows tab and then go to the community section. So PyCharm has two versions, professional and community. Now, the community version is the best one for two reasons. First, it's free, and second, it's simpler than the professional version. And that could be a great advantage, especially if you are a beginner and you are learning, because the professional version might feel a bit of a black box. Many features in the professional version might seem like magic, and that means you will have troubles understanding parts of the coding process. So please download the community version using that button. For macOS, the same thing. You should download either an Intel or an Apple Silicon version depending on what Mac you're using, or you should press this button and that will find out what kind of processor your computer has. And for Linux, please download through that button in that tab. Right, so at this point, I assume that you have downloaded Python and PyCharm, and now the instructions will be specific for different operating systems. So if you are on Windows, you can continue watching. If you are on Mac, you can jump in to minute 8:43. So you can skip this part and jump to that minute. If you are on Linux, you can jump to minute 11:31. So Windows users, let's start by installing the Python interpreter. For that, you should click that exe file. Then before pressing on that button, you should check this option, add python.exe to path. Then press on that install now button and just wait for the installation to finish. So the installation was successful, and we should try out if Python is actually working. To test that, you should go to the start menu on Windows and search for the command prompt. So open the command prompt app, and then in here type in py space minus 3.10 or 3.11, whatever version you installed. In my case, it was 3.10. Press enter, and that should open this view. So if you see these arrows, things are working fine. So if you do 2 plus 2, you'll get 4. So that's part of the Python language, and this language is being interpreted, and the output is being produced by the Python interpreter we have just installed. So let's exit this command prompt and let's install PyCharm. So double click on the executable file you downloaded. This is asking if we want to allow this app to make changes. We press on yes, press on next. That's a destination folder where PyCharm will be installed. Press on next, and here preferably you want to check all the options, and then press on next and install. At the end of the installation, this might ask you if you want to reboot your computer. That's not necessary, so you can just say I want to reboot later. So the rebooting will help to set some configurations, but we really don't need to have those configurations right now. And so let's check if PyCharm was actually installed correctly by searching for PyCharm on the start menu, and you should see the PyCharm Community Edition there. So press on that. Press on Do Not Import Settings unless you had some previous settings that you used before, if you had PyCharm before. So you should see this window, and that means PyCharm has been installed correctly. Now that's about installing the Python interpreter and PyCharm on Windows. And here is how to install Python and PyCharm on Mac OS. So let's start by double clicking the pkg file. Press on continue, 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 press on agree, and install. Provide your passwords for your Mac OS account. And this window should show up. So this is the directory where Python was installed. A good idea is to double click this install certificates.command file. So you can find this in applications, Python 3.10 or 3.11, whatever version you installed, and then you have this file. So double click that. This terminal should show up. So this certificate is useful when you want to send out emails with Python. So close that window and let's check if Python was actually installed correctly. So for that you want to open the terminal on your Mac and type in Python 3.10 or 0.11, whatever version you installed. So it was 3.10 in my case, no spaces. Press enter, and if you see these three arrows, that means Python was installed correctly. So this is the interpreter now, and we can write in code in here. For example, 2 plus 2, we get 4. Right, so this is one way to code, but it's not the best way. The best way is to write the code in an IDE such as PyCharm. So let's go and install PyCharm from the downloads folder. So there we go, PyCharm community, double click that, and you want to drag that icon to the applications folder. And that should have installed PyCharm. So you can search on the launchpad for PyCharm, and it should be here, PyCharm CE. CE stands for Community Edition. So if you click on that and press on open, you should see a window which looks something like this. Now I did have projects before, so these PyCharm projects are being listed in here. In your case, this is probably empty, but later on as you create projects, you will have those projects listed in here. So if you've got this kind of window, that means PyCharm was installed correctly. So that was about installing Python and PyCharm on Mac. And here is how to install Python and PyCharm on Linux computers. Now I'll show you the way to install Python and PyCharm through the terminal. And there's also another way to install Python and PyCharm, and that is by installing the files you download from python.org and jetbrains.com. But in this video we will cover the first way, and that is through the terminal. So let's install Python first. You should first do add-apt-repository, so add -apt-repository space ppa : dead snakes /ppa. And if you get this error, you should do that command again and use sudo in front. So enter the password for your Linux account. This is asking you to press enter if you want to continue, so press enter. Then you want to do sudo apt get update to update the repository. Press on enter for that command as well. And finally you want to do apt install Python 3.10 in my case. So if the current version of Python is 3.11, perhaps it's a good idea to use Python 3.10. If the current version is 3.12, use 3.11 here, and so on. So 3.10 in my case. And if you've got that error, that means you should use sudo apt install Python 3.10. Press on Y and then enter. And that should have installed Python in your Linux. To make sure Python was actually installed, you can write Python 3.10 in my case, maybe 3.11 in your case. Press enter, and if you see these 3 arrows here, that means Python was installed, and you can write in Python code and press enter to execute it. So you can type in Python code here, but a better way to run Python code is through PyCharm. So let's install PyCharm. For that you need to open a new terminal window. So you can press on that icon perhaps to open a fresh terminal. And here you want to do sudo snap. So we will use the snap package manager to install PyCharm -community space --classic and press enter. Enter the password of your Linux account, and that command should download PyCharm and it will also install it. So it was installed in my computer, so you can just check if PyCharm was actually installed. You can search for PyCharm among your programs, press on enter to open it, and PyCharm should open up. So that was how to install PyCharm on Linux. And that concludes this video. If you have issues with the installation process, please post a question in the Q&A. We'll be happy to help you there. So with that, I'll see you in the next videos.